Hi, I'm Sean Regan, and this is a video to accompany an article called The Gruesome and Noxious Execution of Grace Notes and Embellishments, as published in the summer 2016 edition of The Voice, the publication of the Eastern United States Pipe Band Association. This is part 2. Part 1 was published in the spring edition, and links to both the article and the video are included in the description below. So, this is all about embellishments, cleaning them up, relaxing your hands. Relaxing is it's so important. A lot of folks either have unconscious tension in their hands, or they intentionally tense their hands when they come up to difficult passages or embellishments that they know that they have difficulty with. Throws on D, I know torluas are a bit of a problem for a bunch of folks. This one, however, is going to address E doublings from F, and the idea in the method presented here can be applied to, with enough creativity, any embellishment, but especially to embellishments, doublings, that come off of the secondary grace notes, melody notes. So, for example, the primary grace note in an E doubling is a G grace note, secondary grace note's an F grace note. We're playing an E doubling from F in this case. You could do it as a D doubling from E, or as a C or a B or an A or a low G doubling from D. Right, so after you do this, you can go through and apply it to those if you like. The problem then, one last thing is that there are pictures in this article that will help with the exercises. So if you reference those, it'll be a good thing, right? So the problem that we find with E doublings primarily, and with all of these doublings that come off of the secondary grace notes melody note, is the dropping of that finger in anticipation of the grace note, right? That's the sort of big feature that we're going to focus on. There are really 3 questions to ask, or 3 areas to investigate when looking at problematic embellishments, especially if you're not quite sure what's going wrong with them. It's probably one or several of these things. Number 1, it's the relative timing of the movements within the embellishment. So are the grace notes spaced out from each other appropriately? The second is the duration of the elements within the embellishment. So do the grace notes sound for the correct amount of time? And then the third one is the placement of the embellishment relative to the beat. So is it on the beat or is it not? There are some folks who advocate for timing their embellishments differently than this method suggests, and if you want to follow that method, then you're welcome to do so, but I would recommend at least taking a look at this one. Right, so it'll help to have your chanter, and it'll help also if you have a phone, for example, that will record you in slow motion. You'll be able to see something really cool and use that as an aid in this. Recordings in general are a tremendous aid when doing away with blind spots. We tend to develop these blind spots with regard to ourselves and our playing, just because we listen to ourselves for so long that you start to not notice that you're playing with a slight tweak here or there, and so you can have another piper listen to you and comment on it, or you can just record yourself, and that can be an effective thing as well. It can be a bit daunting at first, a bit painful, but once you get used to it, it's a tremendously beneficial practice to record yourself and then go listen to it with no pity at all. So there you are. Right. First thing then is look at image 1. Image 1 in the article. Right? It's played in 2/4, a G grace note to an E quarter note tied to an E dotted eighth note, followed by an F 16th note, followed by an E doubling half note. We played something like this. So I've got my my watch here as a metronome. If you have a metronome, good. If you don't, you really ought to get one. Mine is being used to record this at the moment, so there you are. But a clock or a watch works as well, so long as it's got a second hand. The idea being that a starting place is 60 beats per minute with an eighth note subdivision. So if you can, just set your metronome to 120 and that'll take care of it. Also, there's a video that I'm going to direct you to in a moment that shows this problem as it manifests in bands. So what I want you to do first is, if you have a phone that will record in slow motion, just record yourself for a moment playing what you have at full speed, 60 beats per minute, on image 1 there, right? Pause this video and record that, and then unpause this and I'll tell you what else to do, right? Go. Right, so if you did that, what you're going to watch for is G finger and F finger to land on E at the same time when you're playing the E doubling itself, right? What most people have, even really good players, to a small extent, they'll drop their F finger just a little bit before the G finger, right? So the video is the video of this happening in a band and showing sort of the problem that it can create in a band setting is down below. Thanks to the guys at GRPD for staging this and giving it to me. I think it's going to be a really helpful thing to see that. So how do we go about fixing this? Well, we scroll down to or over to the exploded E doubling as depicted in image 2. Starts off, first off, we're in 3/4 now, not 2/4. And you're going to start on the and of 6 with a pibroch high G. Right? So F fingers down, both hands relaxed. One thing, just sort of a point of interest as we go through here, is that I've identified, or had identified for me, that there's a bunch of tension in my E finger. So if you keep an eye on that over the course of this, you'll notice that it has a slight tendency to hyperextend, and that's something that I just have to work on. But watch out for yourself, that you keep it nice and relaxed. Pibroch high G on the and of 6, landing on E for 1 and 2 and. Then F on 3, normal high G on the and of 3, landing on E again, this time on 4, or the first beat of the second measure, only to play that for half a beat, up to F for half a beat, and finish it on E for a beat and a half. And then we play the pibroch high G as the G grace note that repeats the whole thing. So fingers crossed, let's see if I can get it right on the first try. All right? Now you might have noticed, as I was playing through that, I have a tendency to lift my F finger just a little bit when I come up with the second G, so the normal G right in the middle there. And that's a problem because that's putting just a little bit more tension than is absolutely necessary into the back of my hands. So watch out for yourself as well. The goal is to get your G finger to just come up to the level of the F finger. So that was a bit better. Just watch out for that in yourself. If you have a tendency to over-exaggerate, just try to relax your hands. Remember, just relax, 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 relax. All right, so the next step then is we're going to take it down to image 2.5 because the music writer that I use doesn't know how to make a third ending on something. And we're going to take it back to 2/4, G grace note. All grace notes this time are going to be normal grace note speed, but the E in the middle of the embellishment is going to be played like an eighth note. So it'll be a G grace note to E quarter note tied to an E eighth note, followed by an F eighth note, followed by a G grace note to an E eighth note, followed by an F grace note to an E eighth note tied to an E quarter note. So I go something like this. Again, fingers crossed, right? And the goal there is to really listen to the G and F grace notes. Play it over and over and over, listening to make sure that the G and F grace notes sound for the same length of time. There was a bit of variation in my playing there. A little bit, but it was there. So the goal is to make it sound exactly the same. And your ability to hear that will come with repetition and intentional listening to those sounds. All right? So once you played that through a couple of times, the goal then is to go back up to image 1, play it again at proper speed, right? And for that one, we shorten the F and E eighth notes from 2.5, moving them up to proper speed movements now. So remember again, relax, try to keep those grace notes at the same height, and realize that one of the first effects of playing something like this, really relaxing your hands as you play it, is that you're likely to experience a little bit of sloppiness in your playing. It's a very frustrating thing, especially if you've been playing for a while. Your ears know how to play the thing so that it sounds right, but how it sounds is supposed to be a result of how it's played, right? You don't want it to sound right but be all full of tension. Because even then, if you're listening and you don't know what to listen for, you can usually hear that tension in the playing. So take a couple of weeks or months if necessary. Frustrating for the first couple of days. I've been at it for a couple of days now, and I can tell you it's frustrating, but it gets better over a couple of weeks, a couple of months, to the point where everything starts to loosen up, relax, and then you're able to focus on the music, not on the notes, right? The forest for the trees and all that sort of thing. You want to play music, so practice this nice and slow. And now that you've gone through it with the E doubling from F, try it with the other embellishments and see what that brings out. Last thought then is, I encourage you to, if you're going to apply this, record yourself at normal speed. Record yourself now playing it. Put it up on YouTube. Don't watch it. Just put it up. And then after a couple of weeks of practicing this method, record yourself again and compare the two videos. And I think you'll be pleased with the results. And plus, having that first video will really it'll be a nice thing, you know. It gives you a sense of the accomplishment as you go through this stuff. So I personally would be interested to see your results with this stuff. I see it in my students, but there are a lot of pipers out there. So post a video response if you feel up to it, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks.